The night was silent, but the silence did not bring peace. Smoke rose from the ruined battlefield, and the ground was covered with broken machines and shattered weapons. The war between humans and aliens had left nothing behind except destruction. Among the ruins walked a young human soldier named Daniel. His uniform was torn, his face covered with dust and blood. He was tired, but his eyes were sharp. He was searching for survivors, though he knew the chances were small. Most of his unit had already been evacuated. But Daniel had a strange feeling in his heart, like something was calling him. As he stepped over fallen beams, he heard a sound, very soft, almost like a whisper. He stopped and listened. Again, the sound came. It was not human. It was weak, broken, like someone fighting for breath. Daniel followed the sound. Behind the ruins of a crashed alien craft, he found her. A small alien girl, no older than 12, lay trapped under heavy metal. Her skin glowed faintly violet under the moonlight. Her silver hair spread around her like threads of light. Her eyes, half open, were filled with pain and fear. For a moment, Daniel froze. This was the enemy. Every soldier had been told, no mercy for them, no second chance. But when he looked at her, he did not see an enemy. He saw a child, scared, alone, and dying. "Help," she whispered in a language he barely understood. Daniel dropped his rifle and rushed forward. He pushed against the wreckage, his muscles burning as he tried to free her. The metal refused to move. He tried again, sweat rolling down his face. Finally, with one last desperate effort, the wreckage shifted and he pulled her free. The girl coughed, gasping for air. Her body was thin and fragile, but her eyes shone brighter now, as if she could not believe someone had saved her. Daniel knelt beside her. "You'll be okay," he said softly, though he was not sure himself. He tore a piece of cloth from his uniform and wrapped it around her wound to stop the bleeding. She stared at him for a long time, silent. Then she spoke again, this time more clearly. "Why, you saved me." Daniel looked at her, unsure how to answer. Because it was the right thing to do. Her lips trembled, and for the first time, she smiled, a weak, trembling smile. "I promise. One day, I will return. For you." Her voice carried a strange weight, as if it was more than just a child's promise. Daniel felt a chill. But before he could ask, the sound of approaching soldiers reached his ears. He knew he had no time. He lifted the alien girl in his arms and carried her away from the battlefield. Somehow, he found a hidden path and placed her near a quiet stream, far from the fighting. She touched his hand one last time. "Remember me," she whispered. Then her eyes closed. For a moment, Daniel feared she had died, but then he saw her chest rising and falling. She was alive. Soon, another alien ship appeared in the sky. Daniel hid in the shadows as a rescue team descended. They found the girl, lifted her gently, and took her aboard. Before the doors closed, her eyes opened once more. She looked at Daniel, and though the distance was great, he felt her gaze burning into him. Then she was gone. The battlefield fell silent again, but Daniel's heart was no longer the same. He had broken every rule, risked his life for an alien child, and in return, she had given him words that would haunt him for years. "I will return. For you." Back at the human camp, no one knew what he had done. No one asked. Daniel never spoke of it. But at night, when he closed his eyes, he always remembered that glowing face, that promise, and that strange feeling that their story was not finished. Years passed. The war ended. Humanity moved forward. Daniel tried to live a normal life, but the memory of that night stayed with him, hidden deep in his heart. He often wondered, did she survive? Did she remember? Or were her words just the fading voice of a dying child? He did not know, but something inside him believed. And somewhere, light years away, the alien girl grew into something more. She remembered the human who had saved her. She remembered her promise. And she waited for the day when destiny would bring them together again. 2 decades had passed since that night on the battlefield. The world had changed, but Daniel's life had become ordinary. He now lived in a small town near the edge of the city, far away from the noise of politics, far away from the chaos of war. His hair was streaked with gray, his body carried old scars, and his uniform was locked away in a dusty trunk he never opened. Most people saw him as just another man who had once been a soldier, a veteran who worked with his hands, repairing machines and helping neighbors. Yet deep inside, Daniel carried a memory that never left him. The violet-skinned girl with silver hair, the one who had looked into his eyes and spoken a promise. At night, when the town was silent, he often woke from dreams of her. In those dreams, he saw the same glowing eyes, the same voice whispering, "One day, I will return." But time is cruel. With each year that passed, the dream felt less real. He told himself it was just a child's words, spoken in fear. Maybe she had forgotten him. Maybe she hadn't survived at all. And so he pushed the memory aside, burying it beneath the weight of everyday life. Yet fate has a way of reminding us that promises are never truly forgotten. One evening, as Daniel sat by the old wooden table in his home, fixing the gears of a broken clock, the air around him changed. The lights flickered. The sound of static filled the room. Then, on the surface of the table, glowing symbols appeared, strange, alien patterns that pulsed with a faint blue light. Daniel froze. He knew those symbols. They were the same markings he had seen years ago on the wreckage of the alien craft. His heart raced. This was not a dream. Something, or someone, was reaching out. The symbols shifted into a set of numbers. Coordinates. He sat back, stunned. Why now, after all these years? Who could have sent this? For days, Daniel tried to ignore it. He went about his work, spoke with his neighbors, and forced himself to believe it was some strange electrical fault. But the coordinates burned in his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw them. Every night, the dreams returned stronger. Finally, curiosity and something deeper, a pull he could not explain, pushed him to act. He packed a small bag, locked his house, and set out to follow the path the coordinates revealed. The journey led him far beyond the city, into forests where the air was cool and heavy with the scent of pine. He walked until the trees thinned, and before him stretched a wide clearing. In the center stood something impossible, a circle of stone, ancient yet humming with energy. Strange carvings lined its surface, glowing faintly in the dusk. As Daniel stepped closer, the carvings lit up brighter, responding to his presence. His breath caught. It was a portal. For a moment, fear filled him. He thought of turning back, of pretending this never happened. But then he remembered her eyes, her voice, her promise. Slowly, he reached out a trembling hand. The portal flared to life. A swirl of blue and silver energy spun before him, like a window into another world. The sound was deep, powerful, yet strangely calm. And then, through the shifting light, he saw her. A figure stood on the other side, tall now, no longer a child but a woman, her presence commanding yet graceful. Her skin glowed the same soft violet, her silver hair falling like a river of light over her shoulders. Her golden eyes locked on his, and though 2 decades had passed, he knew her instantly. It was the girl he had saved. She did not speak at first. She only smiled, a smile that was both gentle and unshakable. Then, in a voice that carried across the portal, she said, "Daniel, I have come to fulfill my promise." Daniel's heart pounded. His hand shook. He had lived 20 years believing the moment would never come. And now, here she was standing before him, radiant, powerful, and very real. For the first time in years, he felt the battlefield rushing back, the weight of his choice, the night he had saved her. And he knew, with a strange certainty, that his life was about to change forever. The portal's light grew stronger, pulling him closer. The air crackled with energy. Daniel stood frozen at the edge, staring at the alien woman who had returned after 2 decades. The question burned in his mind. Had she come for gratitude or something far greater? Daniel stood frozen before the glowing portal. The swirling light painted his face with silver and blue, making him look younger, almost like the soldier he once had been. His heart raced as he stared at the figure on the other side. She was no longer the fragile child he had rescued 20 years ago. She was tall, regal, and radiant, an alien woman whose presence demanded attention. Her golden eyes did not waver. They looked straight into his soul, the same way they had on that battlefield long ago. For a moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the steady hum of the portal. Finally, she stepped forward, her voice clear and steady. 2 decades have passed, yet I remember you as if it were yesterday. You saved my life when no one else would. I told you then, Daniel, that I would return, and now I have. Daniel's mouth went dry. His mind scrambled for words. You survived. You really. He shook his head, disbelief and wonder mixing in his chest. Why now? After so long. The alien woman's expression softened, but there was also something unshakable in her tone. Because the promise was not a child's whim. In my world, a life debt binds stronger than chains. You risked everything for me, and by our law, by our honor, I am bound to you. Daniel's breath caught. Bound to him. He remembered her weak voice, her trembling words from that night. I will return for you. He had thought it nothing more than a dying child's hope. But now, standing before him was proof. She had not forgotten. Her hand lifted slowly, pressing against the invisible barrier of the portal. The energy rippled like water. Come with me, she said softly. Step through, and the bond will be fulfilled. Together, we will begin what was promised. Daniel's mind spun. He was just a man, a mechanic, a veteran, nothing more. What place could he have in her world? Yet as he looked into her glowing eyes, he felt something awaken inside him. A sense of destiny he had tried to bury for years. Still, fear held him. I don't understand, he whispered. What do you want from me? Her gaze did not break. Not want, she corrected. Claim. My people's code does not allow me to forget. You are mine to honor, mine to protect, mine to stand beside. I have waited 20 years to make it so. The words struck him harder than any bullet. He was hers. She spoke not as a stranger, but as someone who had carried his memory like a sacred flame. Daniel's hand hovered above the light of the portal. He wanted to step forward, but questions filled his mind. What would happen to his life here? What dangers waited on the other side? Could he trust her? As if sensing his hesitation, her voice softened. I'm not here to take from you, Daniel. I'm here to give. You showed me mercy when I had no one. You gave me life, and now I give you mine. The sincerity in her words shook him. He saw no deceit, no trick, only truth. Then the ground trembled. The portal flared brighter, as if time itself was running out. The woman's eyes widened. Choose quickly. If you do not step through now, the path will close. Daniel's heart thundered in his chest. Behind him lay his quiet life, his small house, his safe routine. Before him lay the unknown, a galaxy, a destiny, and a woman who had waited 20 years to keep her promise. He clenched his fists, his breath heavy. Then, with a final look at the life he was leaving behind, Daniel stepped forward. The portal's energy wrapped around him like fire and ice, pulling him into its depths. For a moment, his body felt weightless, drifting through endless stars. Then the light burst apart, and he stumbled onto solid ground. When his eyes adjusted, he gasped. He was standing on an alien ship, massive, sleek, filled with strange glowing symbols. Outside the wide glass windows stretched a sky of endless stars. And there she was, standing only a few steps away, her expression calm but filled with quiet triumph. Welcome, she said. Welcome to the place where promises are never broken. Daniel's knees almost gave out. His mind screamed at the impossibility of it all, but his heart told him this was real. The girl he had once saved had returned, not as a memory, not as a dream, but as a powerful woman who had crossed time and space for him. And as the ship's engines roared to life, carrying them both into the stars, Daniel knew one thing with absolute certainty. His life was no longer his own. The promise had returned to claim him. The alien ship hummed like a living creature as Daniel tried to steady himself. Every surface glowed faintly, like veins of light running through metal. He felt small in its vast corridors, as if the walls themselves were watching him. The alien woman walked ahead with graceful steps, her silver hair flowing like liquid moonlight. She no longer looked like the child he had saved. She looked like royalty. Yet every few steps, she glanced back at him, her golden eyes softening whenever they met his. Daniel's voice broke the silence. "Where are we going?" She answered without stopping. "To the Hall of Oaths. It is where bonds are sealed among my people. You must understand what you mean to me, to us." The words sent a chill through him. Bonds? Sealed? He wanted answers, but he followed, his curiosity stronger than fear. They entered a chamber vast and glowing. The floor was a circle of black stone carved with glowing runes. High above, banners of alien symbols hung, like guardians of history. At the center stood a raised platform, surrounded by shimmering energy. "This," she said, stepping onto the platform, "is where we claim what is owed." Daniel stayed at the edge. "I don't understand. What is it you want from me?" Her golden eyes locked on his, fierce yet gentle. "Not want. Claim. You saved my life, and by the code of my people, that binds us. In our law, a life debt is sacred. I belong to you now, and you belong to me." The words hit Daniel like thunder. "Belong? I'm no one's property." Her expression softened, almost apologetic. "It is not slavery. It is honor. I'm not here to chain you. I am here to stand with you. My world sees this as the highest bond, greater than blood, greater than kingship. To them, you are the man who holds my fate, and in return, I am bound to you until death." Daniel shook his head, overwhelmed. "Why me? I was just a soldier. I didn't even think. I only helped because it was right." Her voice dropped, almost a whisper. "And that is exactly why. Among my people, mercy is rare. Kindness in war is unheard of. You show me both. That choice changed more than you know." She stepped closer, her presence almost overwhelming. "When you saved me, you saved the last heir of the Solari house. Without me, my people would have fallen. Without you, there would be no future for them." Daniel's breath caught. He realized now. She was not only a survivor. She was a princess, a leader. And because of him, her world still stood. The chamber seemed to grow heavier as her words echoed. He was not just part of her life. He was part of her people's destiny. "I don't belong here," he whispered. "I don't know your ways. I don't even know your world." She reached out, her hand hovering inches from his chest. "You belong because I say so, because I chose you the moment you chose me. You may doubt yourself, but I do not. You are bound to me by fate, Daniel, by law, by promise." For a long moment, Daniel stood silent. The air pulsed with energy, the runes glowing brighter as if waiting for his choice. Part of him longed to run, to escape back to his quiet life on Earth. But another part, the soldier still buried inside him, felt the pull of destiny too strong to ignore. Her voice softened again. "Step onto the platform. Let the bond be sealed. Once you do, no one in the galaxy can challenge it. You will never stand alone." Daniel's heart pounded. Every instinct screamed at him to resist. But her golden eyes, filled with both strength and hope, held him still. Slowly, almost against his will, he stepped forward. His boots touched the glowing stone. At once, the runes lit up brighter, rising in streams of light around them. The chamber filled with a deep hum. The air shook as if the universe itself was watching. The alien woman placed her hand over his, her voice steady and clear. "By the code of the Solari, by the memory of our ancestors, by the promise of 20 years, I claim this bond. He saved my life, and so my life is his. He is my chosen, and I am his vow." The energy surged upward, wrapping them in golden light. Daniel's chest tightened, his breath stolen away. For a heartbeat, he felt his life tearing open, like some invisible thread tying itself to hers. Then the light faded. The runes dimmed. Silence filled the hall. The alien woman smiled, her expression softer than he had ever seen. "It is done," she whispered. "No power in this galaxy can break it now." Daniel staggered back, stunned. He had come searching for answers and found himself bound by an alien code older than his world. His life was no longer his own. And as the ship carried them deeper into the stars, Daniel realized the truth. He had not only saved a girl all those years ago, he had tied his fate to a queen. The bond was sealed. Daniel still felt the faint echo of light in his chest, like invisible threads pulling him toward her. The alien woman, no, the Solari princess, watched him with quiet certainty, as though the galaxy itself had shifted the moment he stepped onto that platform. But for Daniel, it felt unreal. He was just a man, a veteran, a mechanic who lived a small, forgotten life. How could he suddenly be tied to the destiny of an entire alien race? The ship began to move, its engines singing like a choir of stars. Through the wide windows stretched the vastness of space, endless and cold, yet strangely beautiful. Planets drifted past in the distance, glowing like jewels against the dark. The princess stood beside him, her silver hair flowing softly in the ship's light. "Our journey begins now," she said, her voice calm. But beneath it was a fire that could not be hidden. Daniel swallowed. "Where are you taking me?" Her golden eyes shifted to the stars. "Home, to Solara Prime. My world must see you with their own eyes. They must know the man who saved their bloodline, the man who holds the vow of their heir." Daniel's stomach tightened. "And what if they don't want me there? What if they see me as wrong?" She turned to him, her gaze sharp. "They will whisper. They will doubt. Some may even hate. But none will challenge the bond. The code protects you. And she paused, her voice softening. "I will protect you." Her words should have comforted him, but instead, they left him uneasy. Protection meant danger, and danger meant his quiet life was truly gone. The ship passed through a gate of shimmering energy, and suddenly they were inside a new system. Daniel pressed against the glass as alien worlds filled his view. Great cities floated on clouds. Rings of light encircled moons. Massive ships moved like silent giants, their surfaces marked with runes that pulsed like beating hearts. The princess watched him, her smile faint. "To you, this must seem like a dream, but soon it will be your reality." Daniel shook his head slowly. "It feels like I stepped out of my life and into someone else's story." "You stepped into our story," she corrected gently. Her words carried weight, but before he could answer, the door slid open. Two alien guards entered, tall and armored, their eyes narrowing at Daniel. They bowed low to the princess, but their gazes at him were filled with suspicion. One spoke in their strange tongue, his voice sharp and questioning. Daniel couldn't understand, but the tone was clear. He did not approve. The princess's eyes flared, her voice rising in command. She spoke back in their language, firm and unyielding. The guards hesitated, exchanged glances, and then lowered their heads before leaving. Daniel exhaled. "They don't like me. They will learn," she said, though her jaw tightened. "The code binds them as it binds me. They may whisper, but they cannot touch you." Still, she paused, her gaze thoughtful. "You must be ready. The bond makes you powerful in the eyes of my people. That power will bring enemies as well as allies." Her words sank deep into Daniel's chest. He wanted to argue, to tell her he didn't want power, that he only wanted a quiet life. But the truth was clear. He had crossed the line the moment he stepped into the portal. Days passed as the ship traveled. The princess spent hours showing him fragments of her world. Old texts filled with glowing runes, maps of constellations, stories of kings and queens who had once sealed life debts with warriors, forging alliances that had lasted centuries. Daniel listened, trying to understand, but a part of him still felt like a stranger. Every time he looked into her eyes, however, he saw no doubt. She believed in the bond, in him, as if his existence had been written in the stars. Yet whispers followed him. Servants paused when he passed. Guards muttered in corners. Once, he heard the word outsider spoken with venom. That night, Daniel sat alone in his chamber, staring out at the stars. He wondered if he had made a mistake. He wondered if he should have stayed in his small house, fixing broken machines, living a life that at least belonged to him. The door slid open. She entered quietly, her steps soft. For a moment, she said nothing, only stood beside him, gazing at the stars. Finally, her voice broke the silence. "You doubt." Daniel's throat tightened. "I don't belong here." She turned to him, her eyes glowing softly in the dim light. "You belong where I stand. where I walk, where I fight. I chose you because you chose me long before either of us understood what it meant. That is belonging. Her words sank into him, warm and heavy. Slowly, she reached for his hand. Her touch was light, yet it burned through him like fire. Trust me, she whispered. Even when the galaxy doubts, even when you doubt yourself, trust me. For the first time since stepping through the portal, Daniel let himself breathe. He still carried fear, but now a spark of something else flickered in his chest. Not just fear, not just doubt, something dangerously close to hope. And as the ship drew closer to Solara Prime, Daniel realized that his journey was no longer about survival. It was about becoming part of a promise bigger than himself, whether he was ready or not. The ship entered the orbit of Solara Prime, and Daniel pressed his hands against the glass, staring in awe. The planet glowed like a living jewel. Oceans of silver blue stretched across its surface, broken by continents where cities floated in the air, suspended by glowing pillars of light. Rings of crystal circled the planet, scattering rainbows across the void. He had seen many worlds during the war, but never one like this. It was not only beautiful, it was alive, as though the planet itself breathed. The princess stood beside him, her voice calm but filled with quiet pride. This is my home, and soon it will be yours too. Daniel's chest tightened. Home? He wasn't sure he could ever call it that. Still, the sight was breathtaking. The ship descended into the atmosphere, cutting through clouds of gold mist, and landed on a vast platform shaped like a star. Alien banners rippled in the wind, each carrying the crest of her house. Guards in silver armor lined the platform, their eyes following Daniel with suspicion. The princess walked ahead confidently, but Daniel felt the weight of their stares. He was an outsider here, a human among gods. They entered the royal hall, a cathedral of light and stone. The ceilings stretched high above, painted with constellations that glowed faintly. At the far end sat the Council of Elders, tall, ancient figures robed in silver, their faces stern and unyielding. The princess stopped at the center, her voice echoing through the hall. I return as promised, and I bring with me the one who holds my bond. Murmurs filled the chamber. The elder's eyes fixed on Daniel, sharp and piercing. One rose, his voice deep and cold. You bring a human? An outsider? You break tradition, child. The princess did not flinch. I break nothing. He saved my life. He saved our future. Without him, I would not stand before you. Without him, Solara Prime would have no heir. The hall fell silent. Daniel's mind raced. Save their future? What did she mean? He looked at her, searching for answers. She turned to him, her golden eyes soft but steady. It is time you knew the truth, Daniel. Her words echoed like a bell. She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. That night, when you pulled me from the wreckage, I was not only a child. I was the last daughter of the Solari line. Our enemies hunted me to erase my people. Had I died, the bloodline would have ended. Our world would have fallen into chaos. But you chose to save me. Daniel's breath caught. He had known she was important, but not like this. He had saved more than a life. He had saved a dynasty. Her hand brushed his arm, her touch steady. For 20 years, I carried your memory, not only as a promise, but as a shield. Your act of mercy became my strength. Whenever my people doubted me, I told them of you, the human who chose kindness in war. Your name became a story among us, a story of hope. Daniel staggered back, his chest heavy. You told them about me? Yes, she whispered. You became more than a man to my people. You became a legend, a reminder that even in war, there can be compassion. That is why I returned, not only to fulfill my promise to you, but to show my world that humanity is not weak, but strong in ways they have forgotten. The words shook him to the core. He had lived thinking he was ordinary, forgotten, unworthy of greatness. Yet here, in this hall of alien power, he was being called a legend. The elders murmured again, their voices sharp with doubt. A legend? He is just a man. He does not belong among us. The princess raised her voice, fierce and unshakable. He belongs because I say so. He belongs because he saved what none of you could. Without him, you would not sit in this hall today." Her voice rang like thunder. Even the elders fell silent. Daniel's mind spun. He wanted to deny it, to push away the weight of her words. But deep inside, a fire stirred. Perhaps for the first time in years, he felt something he had lost: purpose. The princess turned back to him, her expression softening. "You see now, don't you? You were never just a soldier. You were the turning point of an entire world. And now, your place is here, beside me." Daniel's throat tightened. He had spent 20 years hiding from destiny, living in the shadows of what he once was. But now, the truth stood before him, undeniable. He was no longer just Daniel the veteran. He was Daniel, the man who had saved a queen and changed the fate of a people. The hall echoed with silence, as if the galaxy itself waited for his answer. And in that silence, Daniel realized the truth. His life had never been ordinary. It had always been leading here, to this moment, to her. The council chamber had fallen into silence. All eyes were fixed on Daniel, the human who had stepped through a portal into a world that was not his own. For 20 years, he had lived as an ordinary man, never knowing that an entire people carried his name like a legend. Now, the weight of that truth pressed down on him. The princess stood beside him, her golden eyes unwavering. Her voice had already challenged the council, already declared him as hers by the code of her people. But now the next step was his. One of the elders finally spoke, his voice sharp as steel. "Human, do you accept this bond? Do you claim your place beside her, as our law demands? Or will you deny it and return to your world?" The question cut through Daniel like a blade. His heart pounded. He could feel the bond in his chest, the invisible thread that tied him to her. It pulled him forward, whispering that his destiny was no longer behind him, but here. But fear gnawed at him. He thought of his small house, his quiet life, the safety of being unknown. He thought of the whispers he had already heard, the doubt in the guard's eyes, the venom in the word outsider. If he said yes, he would face not only their judgment, but also their enemies. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Why me?" The princess stepped closer, her hand brushing against his. Her touch was warm, steady, unshaken. "Because you're the one who chose mercy when no one else would. Because you're the one who saved me, not knowing who I was, not asking for anything in return. My people may not see it yet, but I do. You're not here by chance, Daniel. You are here because you are worthy." Her words struck something deep inside him. He had spent years convincing himself he was nothing more than a broken soldier, a man who had left his best days behind. But in her eyes, he saw a different truth, a truth he had almost forgotten. The council waited. The hall seemed to hold its breath. Daniel closed his eyes. He thought of that night, the smoke, the broken machines, the wounded child who had whispered a promise with her last strength. He thought of the 20 years he had carried her memory, never knowing she had carried his too. And he thought of now, her standing before him, not as a girl, but as a queen, offering him not only her bond, but her future. When he opened his eyes, his fear was still there. But beneath it burned something stronger, resolve. Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady. "I accept. I may not understand all your laws or your ways, but I know this. I saved you because it was right. And if that act has tied me to you, then I will not run from it. I will stand by you." Gasps rippled through the council. The runes on the floor flared to life, glowing brighter than before. The bond, already sealed in private, now echoed through the hall, undeniable. The princess's eyes softened, and for the first time in years, her smile was not weighed with duty, but with something far more human, relief. She reached for his hand and clasped it tightly. "Then it is fulfilled. The promise is no longer words, it is life." The elders bowed their heads, some reluctantly, others with newfound respect. One murmured, "So it is written, the human is bound to Solara Prime." But Daniel hardly heard them. His world had narrowed to the woman standing beside him, the warmth of her hand, the certainty in her eyes. For 20 years, he had lived in silence, carrying a memory like a ghost. Now, that ghost had become flesh, and the promise had become reality. As they left the hall, the princess leaned close, her voice low. You do not yet see it, but you will. The galaxy will not remember you as a stranger. They will remember you as the one who turned mercy into destiny. Daniel looked out at the city beyond the palace windows, towers of light stretching into the sky, ships gliding like birds across the horizon. It was alien, vast, and overwhelming. Yet for the first time, he did not feel lost. He felt chosen. He squeezed her hand gently, his voice quiet but certain. Then let's face it together. The princess's smile widened, bright as the stars. And as the sun of Solara Prime rose over the alien city, bathing the world in gold, Daniel knew that the story of a forgotten soldier and a rescued child had ended. But the story of a queen and her chosen human had only just begun.